Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning into the show that goes around the continent to bring you stories near and far. I'm Chamberlain Osawa, Channels Television here in Lagos. I'm joined by Vincent Makori from Voice of America in Washington.
Well, thanks. I'm Vincent Makori at the Voice of America. It's great to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Now, due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, our broadcast looks a little different for now, but we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. Let's start off with the latest from Nigeria. Chamberlain Uso in Lagos brings you that story.
The federal government of Nigeria says it is committed to upholding the sovereignty, unity, territorial integrity, and security of the nation. This comes as the Defense Headquarters organizes a one-day National Defense and Security Summit, which is aimed at promoting kinetic operations as a major tool for counter-terrorism and counter-insurgency in Nigeria.
The Minister of Defense arrives at the National Defense College, Abuja. He's here to attend the one-day National Defense and Security Summit, which aims to promote kinetic operations as a way of boosting the country's counter-terrorism initiative. The Chief of Defense Staff explains the major objectives of the summit.
The specific objectives of the summit are to create functional awareness of the rationale for the kinetic efforts, promote buy-in and support of critical stakeholders in the polity, promote viable civil-military relations structures in support of the kinetic effort, promote possible deterrence from violent non-state actors, facilitate strategic communications, and promote a cohesive information strategy on the kinetic approach.
The Minister of Defense reiterates the federal government's resolve to boost Nigeria's internal security within the shortest possible time.
To the Armed Forces of Nigeria and other security agencies, underscores the use of all instruments of power to stabilize the security situation in the nation and provide good governance, as well as promote peace, stability, and development. The focus and objective use of kinetic operations therefore becomes very obvious.
Kinetic action is the deployment of full military operation from the air, land, and sea against the enemy. It's believed that a military-civil relations approach will go a long way towards making the operation successful.
Let's get more on this story from security analyst David Otto. Thanks for joining us today on the program. What do you make of the rising call to tackle Nigeria's security challenges using what they describe as kinetic action?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chamberlain. I think it is important to, first of all, note that most militaries, especially the ones that are engaged in battles, and not excepting the Nigerian military, are trained to fight using kinetic tactics. So if we take, for example, a decade time frame since the war against insurgency took the toll on Nigeria, and if we try and evaluate what has actually worked, it is at this stage important to note that what Nigeria really needs is an intelligence-led blueprint, a kind of a war plan that reflects the various threats within the country. And to be honest with you, these threats, come in the nature of asymmetric rather than, vertical warfare where kinetic strategies will be very effective. So if you look at the crisis, for example, the Boko Haram in the northeast, you look at the kidnappings in the northwest, the communal clashes in the central, the militancy in the southern part of Nigeria, the separatist movements in the south, and also the insurrections that came behind the NSAS. What it tells you is that horizontal warfare cannot be extinguished with vertical tactics. So I think the promotion of a kinetic strategy is something that really needs to be looked into in the form of how effective that has been and how effective that will continue to be against the threats that we've just identified.
Well, every strategy may always have maybe strengths and its weaknesses. What would you consider as some of the challenges that may make this military approach difficult, and how would you suggest we overcome them?
I think the first challenge is that, of which I mentioned, that if you are deploying your kinetic strategy, then you should be able to have an identified enemy, and this is not the case with the various threats that are happening all over the country. So, the kinetic strategy has the form of ensuring that there is overwhelming show of force to protect territorial integrity and to ensure that, as the Nigerian army has done in the past 5 or 6 years, to ensure that no amount of territory is taken hold of by militants or insurgents, as the case was in 2014 by Boko Haram. There you can deploy some level of kinetic strategy to ensure some supremacy and control of the territory. But when it comes to actually winning the war and not the battles, you need to be able to deploy different kinds of military civil engagements that will allow you to gather enough intelligence to develop your national intelligence estimate of your threat, and to ensure that you have both civil and military, but also law enforcement coming into fore in terms of the way you tackle the various threats. So Boko Haram, for example, requires that initiative. And the good news is that at this point in time, the Nigerian security architecture has a new leadership that has had experience in warfare, especially within the military sector. Beginning from the commander-in-chief himself, he has a military experience. The Defense Military Intelligence, has that experience in the battlefield. The Chief of Army Staff, the Chief of Defense Staff, but also the National Security Advisors. So these are people who all have a wide range of experience, within the kinetic sector. And what they need to do now is to ensure that there is a balance between deploying kinetic strategy, but also employing other diplomatic and soft measures that will be some kind of a blueprint to really eliminate the current threat that the country is experiencing now.
Security analyst David Otto, thank you for your time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Rising magma and empty coffers following an allegation of embezzlement have left volcano watchers in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo worried that they will not be able to provide an early warning if a volcano towering over the city of Goma erupts. David Doyle reports.
The world's largest continually active lava lake spits and froths, lighting up the dusky sky with a tangerine glow and coughing up a slow series of staccato blasts. Standing on the serrated edge of Mount Nyiragongo's crater in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, volcanologist Honoré Saraba peers into the lens of a device measuring changes in the size of the volcano's rim. The readings, along with earthquake, temperature, and gas data, are crucial to the region's early warning system for the nearby city of Goma to avoid a repeat of the 2002 eruption when 250 people died and 120,000 were made homeless. Analysts like Saraba say the volcano's crater has refilled with magma, raising the crater floor and the specter of an even bigger disaster if an earthquake were to cause a fracture in the flank of the volcano. But after the World Bank cut funding amid embezzlement allegations, Saraba and colleagues at the Goma Volcano Observatory are struggling to make even basic checks. If we don't do it regularly, we won't know where the crater is expanding. The more magma that goes up into the crater, the more the crater expands. We need to know where that is exactly, since even if the crater, as you can see, is already 1.03 kilometers, it is possible that it is expanding on the other side. We have to know by how much it's expanding. With the coffers empty, Saraba's team has been unable to pay for an internet connection to run remote sensors, and fuel to transport researchers to the volcano. They have to manually download data on memory cards during the handful of occasions they visit the volcano every year, OVG staff said.
J'ai 65 ans.
We are very curious to see whether the Congo that erupted in 2002 will erupt again. We have to observe it so that we have enough data and can also train those who come after us. The World Bank declined to renew a 4-year, $2 million funding program. The OVG lacked experience and there were weaknesses in implementing such a grant, the World Bank said in a statement. It added that it could not cooperate allegations of graft. The World Bank said it upheld high anti-corruption standards and strict guidelines for procurement and financial management. Volcano watchers like Saraba worry that volcanic activity observed in the last 5 years mirrors that in the years preceding the 1977 and 2002 eruptions. Goma, which was partially buried 19 years ago, has expanded towards the volcano. Its population is estimated to have tripled to around 1.5 million in the last 20 years. Could make an eruption more deadly.
Tanzania's former Vice President Samia Suluhu Hassan has been sworn in as president of the country, becoming the first female head of state in the East African nation. Her inauguration comes after the death of President John Magufuli, Africa's most vocal COVID-19 skeptic.
Tanzania's first female president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, is regarded as a consensus builder, a trait that may prove to be an asset in dealing with the various factions within the ruling CCM party and security agencies following the death of President John Magufuli. She is the first Tanzanian president born on the occasionally restive autonomous Zanzibar archipelago, rather than the African mainland, which has dominated Tanzania since the state was formed as a union of the two territories in 1964. A day after being sworn into office at the State House in the country's commercial capital, Dar es Salaam, President Hassan addressed the nation to call for unity. She also asked citizens to avoid pointing fingers after the death of John Magufuli.
This is a time to bury our differences as a country and be one as a nation. It's time to console each other, show each other love, our unity.
In the meantime, Tanzania's main opposition leader, Tundu Lissu, living in exile in Belgium, is urging the president to change course in the fight against COVID-19.
President Magufuli, as I have said, was absolutely, adamantly reckless in his approach to COVID-19. And as a result, it has caused so many unnecessary deaths. Vice President Samia Suluhu Hassan is going to have to change course because there is nothing else.
First elected to a public office in 2000, President Hassan came to national prominence in 2014 as a vice chairperson of the Constituent Assembly, created to draft a new constitution. There, her calm demeanor in managing occasional outbreaks of pandemonium and the way in which she dealt with some of the more outspoken members earned her plaudits. The 61-year-old is affectionately known as Mama Samia in Tanzania.
It's time now for a short break, and as always, we remind you to visit our website, channelstv.com, for news you can use and programming around the clock. You can also find us at youtube.com/channelsweb. Still to come on the program, a new Guinness World Record from Egypt. Meet the man who performed the world's highest out-of-water jump while wearing a monofin.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Haitians and asylum seekers from African countries are making the dangerous trip to the U.S. border since the Biden administration took office. VOA's Elizabeth Lee details the treacherous journey they often face.
For many migrants, getting to the land of opportunity is a dangerous journey. But for Mousmi Altido, an asylum seeker from Haiti, the situation in her home country was worse.
2 robbers attacked me. They beat me. They stabbed me.
She says she almost died. Unable to support her 3 children, Altido left them with her mother and traveled to Belize to find work, and eventually ended up joining a caravan to walk to the United States while pregnant.
I didn't see a life there. I only saw death. So instead of dying, I took the road.
When Altido arrived in Mexico, she was left behind. She made it to the border only through the help of strangers and was allowed to enter the U.S.
They were not going to hold me because I was pregnant.
In the U.S., Altido, her now 18-month-old baby, and approximately 60 other Haitian migrants live in temporary housing provided by the Catholic Charities Diocese of San Diego while they wait for their immigration court hearings. But they are the exception, says Gulin Joseph of Haitian Bridge Alliance, a nonprofit community organization.
Yes, in February alone, we had over 1,000 people who got deported. And sometimes it would be one deportation flight, and we also saw up to 3 deportation flights in one day. And as I mentioned, in those flights, we saw pregnant women, 26 weeks pregnant women. We saw infants as young as 1 and 2 months old.
Joseph says this is not the time to deport Haitians when their home country is currently experiencing political unrest after an alleged failed coup.
We are demanding the Biden administration to stop the deportation and expulsion.
The Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, has not responded to VOA's request for a comment about deportations of asylum seekers from Haiti. But DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is asking all asylum seekers to wait as the Biden administration revises former President Donald Trump's immigration policy during a pandemic.
If families come, if single adults come to the border, we are obligated to, in the service of public health, including the health of the very people who are thinking of coming, to impose the travel restrictions.
Meaning deportations. However, there are reports of inconsistent treatment of migrants.
We are hearing across the border, not only in San Diego, in McAllen, Texas, and other places, that people are getting processed and let in, and some of the same Haitian group who are coming through are deported.
Even for Altidore, who is allowed to enter, her future is far from certain, as her fate will be decided by an immigration court. Elizabeth Lee, VOA News.
A 21-year-old Egyptian man has broken the Guinness World Record for the highest out-of-water jump while wearing a monofin. His jump hit the unprecedented mark of 2.30 meters above water.
At just the age of 21, civil engineering student Omar Sayed Shaban has become one of the world's fastest underwater sprinters, setting a new world record for the highest jump out of water while wearing a monofin. His jump hitting an unprecedented mark of 2.30 meters above water.
My name is Omar Sayed Shaban. I am 21 years old. I swim with fins. Thank God. I was able to achieve a Guinness World Record in jumping over water using monofins. The previous record was 2 meters. I achieved a record of 2 meters and 30 centimeters.
Originally from Ismaila, a mainland city across the Suez Canal, the young athlete is already a national and regional champion, having won a number of medals and trophies for his swimming, speed, depth, and technique. Shaban first started swimming at the age of 8 and won his first medal at 11. In November 2020, he marked his finest achievement and entered the Guinness World Records.
For me, it was something new and difficult to be able to go underwater for 5 meters and to be able to jump out of the water, reaching more than 2 meters high. I faced some difficulties, but thank God I overcame them.
According to the chairman of the board of directors of the Egyptian and Arab Federation of Diving and Rescue, Shaban's achievement is not a minor one, as he has managed to beat some of the world's most renowned swimmers. This is the first time the record has been broken in 9 years, according to the Guinness World Records, with previous titles claimed by Italians Cesare Fumarola and Stefano Figini, as well as Egyptian Soliman Sayed at the height of 2 meters.
Electric taxis, no peer ride, is set to expand in Kenya's capital, helping to reduce emissions from Nairobi's notorious traffic. Environmental experts say electric vehicles are a welcome step toward preventing health problems in Africa's growing cities, but more needs to be done. Rude Elmendorp reports from Nairobi.
Kenyan taxi driver Charles Kaloki says switching to an electric vehicle with Finnish ride-hailing service Nopea Ride has been a boon for his pocketbook. Nopea Ride's parent company, Ecorent Oy, launched in Kenya in 2018 and has charging stations that give free power for their drivers.
You can make better money out of this than paying for fuel every other corner of this town that you visit.
Nopea Ride, which means fast ride in Finnish, plans to expand its fleet of rented electric taxis from 30 to 100 by the end of this year. While the high cost of electric cars, about double that of fuel burners, remains a deterrent for buying, founder Juasuo Jainen says the demand is only growing.
I think that in the future it's not going to be only Nopea that is importing these electric cars. There will be other people that will be buying these cars and more of them coming to the market.
Nopea is competing against more than 11,000 fuel-driven taxis in Nairobi. The United Nations Environment Programme UNEP says most cars in Kenya used imports from Japan with high emission levels. The World Health Organization says automobile pollution causes at least 5,000 deaths per year in Kenya.
We see increased cases of congestive obstructive pulmonary diseases. We see many triggers of asthma, and all these can be alluded to the air pollution that is happening along our highways.
Environmental experts say switching to electric taxis will help reduce air pollution. But Kenya also needs better public transport and a ban on high-emission vehicles.
They will then have to meet some minimum standard, which can already result in reductions of emissions depending on the pollutant between 70 and 90% per vehicle.
Meanwhile, Nairobi will slowly see more electric cars plying its roads as chariots of change. Ruud Elmendorp for VOA News, Nairobi.
Well, and that's our show for today. You can find all the continent's top news and world news online at voaafrica.com. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Channels Television has our last word from Lagos.
We look forward to bringing you another show next week. Remember, channelstv.com is your source for news and other programming. I'm Chamberlain Assault. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.